Lisa here. Welcome to my channel and welcome to my weekly deck reviews. I apologize in advance for the background noise. There is laundry and dogs and chirping birds and all kinds of wonderful noises happening all around me, but this is real life, yo, and I really wanted to get this video recorded for y'all. So in this video, and there's a dog now. She's gonna be right here in a sec. Anyways, in this weekly video, I like to share with you the decks that I've been working with this week. I always work with a tarot deck and an oracle deck. That may change at some point, but it is the formula that works for me. So I like to share with you what I was working with over the past week and what I'm going to be working with next week. So I like to share my thoughts on decks. Sometimes these are decks that are new to my collection, and sometimes they are oldies but goodies. So this week, I have been working with the Game of Thrones Tarot. You guys, I'm going to try not to talk spoilers, but if you're real concerned and you're not up to date, you might want to just fast forward past all the pretty talk with these cards and then catch me at the end. But I'm actually, you know what, I'm probably not going to talk spoilers. Here's the thing. I have feelings because Game of Thrones, after 8 seasons, is over. And the 8th season wasn't even a full season. It was like a half season. And a very rushed feeling half season at that. But it was good. And it really did span some serious time. Now, when I first found out about the Game of Thrones Tarot, this is what the backings look like. I guess I should show you pictures while I'm talking to you. When I first found out about this deck, I think this was after season 5, maybe season 6. I saw pictures and I was like, I don't know. But then people got this deck and they started talking about the cardstock, and I don't know if I can get the light to catch it. It's got this texture. It's not quite the same as other linen texture, but it is a playing card linen texture style finish. And people were talking about what a dream it was to shuffle this deck. And I'm not ashamed to admit that what tipped me over the edge to purchase this was the shuffling. All the things people were saying about shuffling, because I love to shuffle. Shuffling makes me happy. It's soothing. And I'm a fidgeter, so it's fantastic. And this deck really does shuffle like a dream. But I also love the show. Now, I thought that this deck was going to be a collector kind of thing for me. One of those decks that I just couldn't pass up, but that maybe I didn't see myself working with it regularly. And boy, was I wrong. So when I first worked with this deck, and I don't think I was doing YouTube at the time, but when I was first working with this deck, it blew me away with how spot on the readings could be, how accurate, how easy it was to read with this deck, despite the fact that the imagery was not classic Rider-Waite-Smith really at all, because I could pull from the story. And I do think that these cards are really well thought out. I think they're matched up well with Rider-Waite-Smith meanings. And yeah, we see a lot of repeating characters, but it all makes sense. And you can make a case for changes in a lot of these cards, but I also think that you can make a case for the choices that were made. And it's such a dream to work with. So this past week, this was about sort of celebrating the end of Game of Thrones. And this also came about because, as you may have seen, and there is a link in the description box down below, and I will also put a card up, myself and Dustin at ModernMetaphysicMan and Dani of Dani Mystic got together and created a collab channel. And we were so excited, and the sort of whole thing came about because we were talking about Game of Thrones together, well, kind of separately, and then we realized this would be a really, really fun thing to do. And it was a lot of fun, you guys. We talked about our feelings about the show. We talked about some predictions for the upcoming series finale. I always want to say season finale, but no, it's all done now. And we just had this amazing time. So I worked with this deck for that video and then throughout the whole rest of the week. And it was a blast. This deck reads so good. Like, here's a good example. I'm going to talk about something that happened and I can't remember what season because I'm bad at that. But in this part of the story, so if you want to like la 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 or mute it, go for it. But in this part of the story, a really important character is killed. So he's very much stabbed in the back, and he very much dies. And yet, there is redemption for this character, and there is an opportunity for new life. And there is a nowhere to go up but up from here kind of moment for that character. And so it's so perfect for the Ten of Swords. And there's card matchups like this throughout the entire deck, where you can just totally, you understand the meanings differently because of the way they're portrayed from the show. And this cardstock is an absolute dream. Now, with that being said, I should point out that I have been hearing some murmurings around the tarot community that the decks that they are shipping now do not have this really, really nice linen finish, that they actually are kind of a crummy cardstock. And these cards are thin, but they're that sturdy, beautiful linen finish stock. And I, like here, I have to shuffle. So I'm a rifle shuffler, so I'm just gonna, but listen, it like whistles because, I don't know, it's just, it's amazing. It's so wonderful to shuffle. I know that probably sounds ridiculous and trite, but it really does make me happy. But overall, I was most excited for the fact that this deck isn't a novelty deck, at least for me. It reads really, really well. Now, that being said, I don't know that it would read that well for somebody that doesn't know the show. It would probably actually be a difficult read for somebody who hasn't watched the show. But that being said, for the first several seasons of Game of Thrones, while I loved the show, I would not have classed myself as a super fan. I feel like I kind of became more of a super fan as the show went on. And so at the time I got this deck, I was kind of in that transition place where a lot of the scenes depicted didn't come immediately to mind, but they did. They are described in the book. Oh, the book. We are reviewing here, people. I gotta show you the book. This is great. So it comes with this little mini hardbound book that's actually made to look as if it came from the Game of Thrones universe. It has a sewn binding, so this little book is actually very well put together, and the pages have this kind of colored look, like they almost look a little bit tea stained, very lightly, but they've got that slightly parchmenty aged look to them. It's all black and white, and the text is tiny, particularly when you get into the minors. I think I talked about this last weekend, in these little bits here, it's real tiny, and that's the bit that describes what's happening in the scene. So, I mean, I need my reading glasses, let's be honest. And I try really hard not to use those. But I love that it comes in this book, and I love that the book is the exact same size as the cards, because I like to keep my books and my cards together when possible, which is rarely possible because usually the guidebook and the deck are slightly different sizes. If the guidebook is bigger than the cards and you hang it in a bag, like you see I hang my decks, if you hang the book with the bag and they're different sizes, then, well, this wouldn't happen with a hardcover book, but with a softcover book, it kind of curls around the cards, so the book gets a little bit of a bow to it, which, because this is hardbound and because it's the right size, I don't have that problem. So, and of course, Peggy got me some, I told this story last week, so I won't tell it again, but Peggy made me a very special Game of Thrones bag for my Game of Thrones deck, so that is also super, super special. The Oracle deck, I almost hesitate to call it that I have been working with over the past week, is the Heal Yourself Reading Cards by Ina Segal, and this is a Rockpool Publishing deck. This is the back. I am going to actually ask Peggy to make me a custom-sized bag for this deck that will let me keep it in the box, because this is one of those decks. There's only a couple decks I have like this in my collection. There's this one and the Crystal Medicine cards that I recently reviewed on my channel. I'll link those in the cards as well. My review, my weekly deck review of those. But this deck and that deck, and there are a couple of others in my collection, are the kind of decks where I feel like I need to use these together as a tool. I don't want to use them separately. I could totally use this deck separately from the book, but the book is such a huge part of the experience for me. So let me dive into what I feel about this deck and how it's ended up working for me and how I anticipate working with it moving forward, because this is going to be a pretty significant part of my personal spiritual practice moving forward. So I really want to give it the attention it deserves. So first of all, the cards themselves are beautiful. I do plan to edge them probably in a gold. I haven't done it yet, but this deck isn't going anywhere, so that'll be easy to get around to. But I just love this sigil on the back that is, it looks like a heart. There's the 6-pointed star in there. There's so much to really dive into in the symbology here, and I wish there was actually a section in the guidebook that explained this, because I do think this is not meaningless. But that being said, this deck is not, to me, an oracle deck. It's something more. When it calls itself the Heal Yourself Reading Cards, it doesn't even call itself an oracle deck. So, like, I think how it describes itself as if it's like a disembodied entity. How Ina Segal has titled this deck makes perfect sense for how I worked with it and how I will be working with it moving forward. So I will say that even one card a day was too often for this deck, by far. I am going to be working with this deck in a very slow, thorough way moving forward, but I am going to continue to work with this deck pretty permanently, I feel like. For starters, every single one of these cards invites you to take a look at an area of your life, an area of relating, an area related to self, and to do some thinking about that, and to do some work around that, and maybe shift your perspective around that. And so this is an excellent deck for conscious, for conscious shadow work. It's an excellent deck for really consciously and intentionally looking at yourself and diving into yourself. Now, I did film a full walkthrough and review that I will put up on my channel this coming week, so where I talk more in depth about my experience with this deck, but let's just leave it here. I will be working with one card, probably a moon cycle, maybe less often, maybe more often, but there will be a card always out in my card sacred space. I'm looking at it. I still need to film a VR to the my spaces, because I want to show you guys, but I will be working with one of these cards each moon cycle or on some sort of schedule, because, and again, I'll go into this with more detail later in the week, but the guidebook, the way that it's set up, and there is some information here about like using the cards in a more oracle style in the beginning, but the way each, why do I always flip to that one? The way each one is formatted is you get a full page, full color image, which is amazing. This book is very nice quality, well put together. And then on this side, you'll have a sort of a summary of this area of personal growth or healing. And then you'll have a little more information, and then you'll have an action. And the action can be anything from, I've mentioned this before, but it can be like, okay, this one is to connect with your body and to basically do a bit of a personal meditation, to ask your body what it needs, and then to do a visualization that is intended to bring healing to yourself. You guys, this is really special. This deck is special. The way that it approaches personal growth and self-worth and shadow work is really special. And I just feel like it brings something really unique to our deck collecting community, if that makes sense. There's a lot of decks that come in and they're great to work with, and I enjoy working with them, but not many change the shape of my spiritual practice. The few that have so far are the Weaver's Oracle, the Dark Goddess Tarot, the Goddess Oracle by Amy Sophia Marashinsky and Hrana Janto, and this one. And so when I encounter a deck that just wants to be a part of my spiritual practice, that's what tells me that I found something special. And so you'll be hearing more from me about this deck, but this was really exciting, and I'm so pleased that I stumbled across this. The reading cloth I used this week is an oldie but a goodie. I showed this last week, but it is a piece of fabric that Peggy and I found a long time ago. It is actually from a collection of fabrics by Klimt. Gustav Klimt, I think is his name. There's a Klimt tarot, and I think at this point all of her items she's made with this fabric are gone, but check her shop because she had a couple bags. Sorry, I'm selling. I'm not meaning to sell. I'm sorry. I get really excited about Peggy stuff. And can I tell you that today's Saturday when I'm filming this, Peggy has been getting caught up on my rather lengthy honeydew request list. So I'm in loving my wifey for making me all the pretty things mode at the moment. But this video is getting long, so let's move along. Let's talk about what I'm going to be working with next week. So first I'm going to hold up this giant, beautiful bag that Peggy made me. So there's a story behind this bag. It's actually got two decks, a crystal and a reading cloth inside, because it's just its size allows for that. But here's why. First of all, the deck that this bag was made for, first and foremost, dun dun dun, the Luminous Void Tarot. Oh, you guys. This deck is actually really speaking to me so far, and I've only worked with it a very tiny bit so far because we're just at the beginning of the week. But if you haven't seen this, I will tell you this artwork creeped me right out in the beginning. I'm not even going to pretend it didn't. But there's something about it that just makes me slow down, and I love that. The another deck that does that with me, or for me, is the Tildwick Tarot. Another deck that does that for me is the Soul cards. Ooh, I could see working with this with the Soul cards, actually. I could see myself doing past life readings with this deck. I could see myself doing soul healing readings with this deck. And I don't say that about very many decks, but it has this almost Rorschach. Somebody tell me how to pronounce that down below. But it has that sort of, look at that beautiful hermit. It has that sort of quality to it. And I like the fact that it's a different shape. It kind of takes me out of my head a little bit. With tarot, sometimes it can become a bit rote. Sometimes it can become a bit routine, and we lose the magic of it. And this deck just is bringing back the magic. Do you know what I mean? So I'm really excited to be working with it. It has matte gold gilding. The backs are, this deck has that rose petal finish with this really beautiful watercolor artwork in the center and that gold, and it's just, it's so pretty. But I wanted to store it in its box because I also love the box, because the box has that rose petal finish. And so I wanted a bag big enough that could hold this giant deck. And just to keep it proportionate, it's a little bit wider, so there's room in here. The crystal that I'm working with this week alongside this deck is my Apatite Palm Stone. And the reading cloth that Peggy made me totally matches the bag, and it's so pretty with its like paint splatters and its flowers. It's got that same kind of bright Rorschach-y kind of, see, I did it that time. I think I said it right. And then on the back, it's got this stunning galaxy pattern. I love this. This is my brightest cloth, and it's so perfect for this deck. And so yeah, I'm really excited to have such a cool little matching set, and she made it for me right away. We actually went to the fabric store and looked for fabric specifically for this deck for me, and I think she does have a bit of this left over. Just saying. Again, I'm not trying to sell. I'm just really excited. So the Oracle deck that I'm working with this week alongside the Luminous Void Tarot is the Oracle of Echoes by Anaturian. This came about for two reasons. So first reason is I was trying to think of a deck that that art style wise would be similar to the Luminous Void, and because this is also a watercolor art deck that has this really gorgeous flowy feel to the artwork, I just felt like this would be a really beautiful accompaniment. So that was the first reason, or actually technically that was the second reason. The first reason was a friend of mine reached out and asked about my opinions on this deck. She was looking for an Oracle deck to potentially purchase and wanted to know what I thought about this one. We got chatting about it, and it brought it front of mind. And so when I was thinking of watercolor decks, I know I told the story out of order, but bear with me. So when I was thinking about Oracle decks to use with this deck, this one came to mind. And when I sat and thought about it, I was like, yeah, because this one is so dreamy and sort of dives deep, that it makes sense that a deck like this would be perfect. I have worked with this deck many times before, so I won't go into a whole lot of detail right now, but I expect my experience with it will be positive, as it usually is. But I will fill you guys in at the end of the week regardless. So that is what I'm going to be working with this coming week. I kind of love that this bag that Peggy made me is like roomy enough that I can put both decks in there, and the crystal and the cloth, and just kind of carry it around as one little kit, which is great because I do, whatever decks I'm working with for the week, they literally travel with me. They come with me. They don't come with me for errands, but they come with me to work. They come with me, you know, room to room when I'm moving around the house, that sort of thing. So just being able to have it all together in this giant bag is really amazing. So yeah, so now she has made these super giant bags. I'm really excited. I have to hang another rack. So you see my racks are very full. I have another rack to hang. It's going to hang over on this wall, and we'll be taking care of that soon too. But until then, I have a slightly bit of doubling up happening. So that is what I have been working with last week. What I'm going to be working with this week, I will definitely be keeping you guys posted. Usually once I'm working with a deck, I will usually, any Instagram posts or challenges I'm doing, I will use that deck or those decks. So you might be seeing posts of this deck and this cloth and that sort of thing on my Instagram account. But I would be curious to know your thoughts on any of the 4 decks I have talked about today. So Game of Thrones Tarot, the Heal Yourself reading cards, the Luminous Void Tarot, or the Oracle of Echoes. If you've worked with any or all of these decks, share your thoughts down below. If any of these have caught your attention or you have more questions about them, drop those down below and we can have a bit of a conversation about it. But either way, thank you for joining me. I really look forward to seeing you in the next one. And I hope you have a beautiful day. Remember to like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And as always, if you want to book a reading with me, I will have the link to my Etsy shop down below. I don't do a ton of client readings, so sometimes the turnaround time can be about 5 business days or so, at least currently. But definitely hit me up if you want something that you don't see in my shop reading-wise, and we'll set something up. And so until next time, guys, take care and bye-bye.